All right, we have YouTube's up and LinkedIn. Come on, LinkedIn. It's taking a second. Let's see. We have LinkedIn. Oh, oh no. LinkedIn, come on. Well, let's just see. It says starting soon. This is the weirdest thing. The challenges that you have when you're trying to run a live show. But
Technology.
technology. The event will start soon. Wait for the host to start it. But I did start it. That's not good. Well, if we have to go without LinkedIn, that is going to be fine. We will live. It might just come on live again, though. No. Well, anyways, if you're watching this on LinkedIn later, you'll at least get the recording at some point. Might have to be after we edit it and upload it, but eventually it will show up. Anyways, welcome to the monthly AI update. I'm Alec Kaufman here with John and Addie, and what we do here is we're trying to cover the month of AI news compressed into this short 1 hour. And the reason why we do that is there's so much news out there, and it's really hard to understand what actually matters, especially as a busy small business owner. I mean, like, are you going to read the 300 articles? Probably not. But we're trying to cover the highlights and the things that we think you should know about so that you can stay up to date with AI. And when I hand it over to John and Addie, John, I'll have you go first. Just tell them a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, hello, Alec and Addie and everyone. Great to be here. I'm John Down. I'm a professor at the University of Portland. I teach entrepreneurship and AI, and we're kind of wrapping up our semester here. This is our finals week and kick things off again in the middle of January. And I'll be teaching a class in the spring that meets at 4:10 on Mondays. It's on how to use AI for an hour. And anybody interested in that can send me an email and I'll send you info on the class and you can join us for one or more sessions. And my email is down@up.edu.
Awesome.
Best email.
I'm easy email. I wish mine was that easy. But I'm Addie Olson. I'm an independent consultant around data science and AI strategy. I work with small businesses, nonprofits, startups, and public organizations.
All right. And I'm Alec Kaufman. I'm the founder of Annovation. Annovation is all about helping small businesses with technology. AI is a pretty big technology, so I'm really pushing for that. If you're interested in AI Fridays or the Annovation community, AI Fridays is a thing every single week. We cover different AI business applications. And then to wrap it all up, we do this monthly AI update to try and answer your AI questions as well. So those of you who have sent us questions, we will be answering those in a little bit. And first, we're going to cover some news. And then if you have questions that you want to send us between now and then, you can type them in the chat on YouTube or hopefully LinkedIn if LinkedIn is working. And you can always submit them if you just go to annovation.io or you're in the Annovation community. There's a link in my link in bio tool that you will see where you can submit a question. If you have any trouble finding it, just comment it below and I'll send you the link. All right. Let's do one last check for the LinkedIn page.
Good idea.
See if nope, we're still down. Well, that is how it goes when you're doing a live show. But anyways, let's dive right in. So obviously we are live. If you're watching this later, this is recorded on the 11th of December. So any news that has happened since then, that's why we don't know about it. All right. So a couple of big things have happened this month. So the big one is obviously Gemini 3. So let's get started on that. Wherever I put my tab for Gemini 3, there it is. Okay. So we've got Gemini 3, and really so it came out on the 18th, and the reason why it kind of took a lot of the news space and is one of the big stories of this month is it actually kind of took the crown. I mean, for a while, ChatGPT had been on top there, and it was very interesting to see a model take that lead. But what's also interesting about Gemini 3 is, well, it's Google's model, but it's also does not use the NVIDIA chips. It's on TPUs instead of GPUs. So that was another interesting thing. We hadn't seen that before. And this is the article where they launched it. And whenever Gemini or ChatGPT launches something, it's like a major model update. So then that ripples through all the rest of their products that use their AI tools as well. So it was big when ChatGPT launched GPT-5, and it's big when Gemini launches Gemini 3. Have you guys been able to use this or jump into it or experimented with it at all?
Yeah, I've been playing with it some, and have been quite impressed, and sort of feel like it is definitely a noticeable upgrade in capability. One thing I did, and I think you might talk about infographics as well, I asked it to do a deep research report, and I was basically kind of wanting it to kind of track the changes in how people have perceived advances in AI over really the past 10 years. So going back before all the AGI stuff, or sorry, all the Gen AI stuff broke 3 years ago now. And sort of also to look at that at different groups, are there different groups out there? Anyway, it came out with a really good report, a lot of great sources and citations. And then I took that report and I did upload it and asked for an infographic of it. And again, I was really impressed with how it pulled out a lot of really relevant key points and made a very interesting infographic. So that was really cool.
That's awesome. I honestly haven't had a chance to use it much except for assisting in working within GCP, which is really awesome. It's kind of like having your own little assistant who knows the product super well and can help explain everything. So instead of like digging through documentation, being like, hey, I'm struggling to get permissions correct on this thing or activating this API, I can just like take you right there and give you the links. And so it's been super, super helpful. One of the projects I'm working on.
And can you explain did you say GCP?
Yeah, GCP, Google Cloud Platform. So similar to like if you think of like AWS as Amazon Web Services or Azure as Microsoft's cloud product, this is Google's cloud product.
Perfect. And if you're looking at and we'll cover some of the infographic stuff in just a little bit too. But if you're looking at the benchmarks, here's all the benchmarks that are out there. There's more benchmarks than this, but here's the ones that they highlighted. Good point to just bring up whenever you're looking at benchmarks is if you see the benchmarks here and you see that they're only including their own models or they're leaving off some like really key competitor models, that could be a red flag. Generally, if you see all the major models on there though, it's probably a pretty honest benchmark reading. So you can see how it compares to 5.1, Claude, and Gemini 2.5 Pro. So, good to have just like one of their own, and then two of the other leading models out there.
Alec,
Of course,
are you sharing?
Grok isn't on there. Oh,
Are
yeah, it
you-
should be sharing.
Maybe I just can't see it.
Let's see.
I can see it. So
Okay, it's a me
Okay.
problem then.
So, but yeah, we've got it here so that you can see the benchmarks. When it comes to benchmarks, they're all kind of a little different, and I'm not going to explain every single one of them, but just know there when you see it performing across a lot of the different benchmarks well, that's a good sign. If it was
Yeah.
only beating other models in like one thing, that would be a different, like if you're trying to use that model for that one use case, yeah, then that might be better. But this is kind of how you can tell model performance. But at the same time, there's how it integrates with your ecosystem, how how you actually use this tool, what you've already set up. Um, so when you're choosing whether or not you would want to switch, you'll want to factor all those things in. Like if you use ChatGPT for everything at this point, switching to Gemini might be a little complex. So
yeah, I think that's a really good point to make, that you don't want to necessarily just hop from one to the other kind of thing, because, as a result of Gemini coming out with a model that does seem to be, significantly better in some ways, and these benchmarks are showing it, but then there's obviously a pushback at OpenAI, and there's, a sense that they're going to have 5.2 come out pretty soon, right? And will be somewhat comparable to what Gemini 3 has. So yeah, you spend a lot of time looking at switching. So as you say, Alec, there's a lot of things to consider besides in terms of whether you want to actually make a switch or not.
And I think as long as they're in competition, that's really the important part. I mean, if we had only one AI model out there, I think we'd be at risk of seeing more use in advertising and things like that, and kind of less data privacy things. I think it's good that they're in competition, because that means that no one AI model is just going to start selling sponsored post spots or anything like that. So like you send a query or something like that, you enter your question and it says, "Oh, this is the best results," and it's sponsored by, the advertiser. And I think that them being in competition like this keeps them from doing things like that, which is good.
Yeah, and there is a lot of competition too. It's not obviously just Google and OpenAI either, right? So,
I mean, yeah, just to illustrate that, this is one benchmark. So this is ArcAGI, and you can see all the different models on here. There's quite a few. This is their AGI 1 leaderboard. Their AGI 2 leaderboard is what kind of shocked everyone, because you can just see the jump here that Gemini 3 had, and these other Gemini 3 scores here. But what's really shocking is when you compare it back to where it used to be. I mean, Gemini 2.5 is way down here, this little dot around 5%. And it's made a huge jump up into this 45 range, 30 to 45. So just in terms of model progress, we're just seeing a lot of progress in the AI models. And I think there was this thinking that we were kind of leveling off for a while, for a couple months there, and I think this Gemini 3 release just kind of shattered that belief that we had actually hit that leveling off and that plateau where these models weren't getting better.
Yeah, and there's a lot of other aspects to the models themselves that are getting better too, right? Things like memory. It seems like that's a really big one, and that's kind of opening up a lot of new applications and things like that. So the intelligence of the models don't even necessarily need to get better and better in order to have more sort of value in what AI can do for companies.
Yeah, I was gonna say, when we were kind of back talking about the switching between models, the context and context window availability, I think, is a big factor too. if you've done lots of work in one, it has lots of queries and history about you. If it's a model that like retains that context, then it's like, and maybe you're actively giving it feedback, like using a little thumbs up, thumbs down, or like revising, asking future questions to get more of what you want, or even like revising like within the program itself, like you can do in some programs. You start to get better, more customized results. And so it's like, oh, thinking about taking that over to a new model might seem hard. I wouldn't be surprised if we see eventually like people making it really easy for you to do that. Like, for example, if you're like gonna switch from like an iPhone to a Samsung, there's like an app where it's like it'll just take all your iPhone stuff and put it on the Samsung. Because like Samsung's like, great, we want another customer. We're gonna make it really easy to like convert all of your data, all your photos, all your notes, etc. So kind of that switching cost when you're talking about like memory and context is different. And then of course all the companies kind of have a different strategy around that. Like Claude comes to mind. They didn't have like any sort of like memory for kind of like the life of their product, and that was like one of their selling points actually, was like every single query you just get like the model response. We're not taking any of your prior data or like anything, any like tracking data that we know about you. Like you're just like a person interacting with the model. And some people really appreciate that and some people don't. And so now Claude can look back at your prior queries, but and Claude has a super long context window as well if you want to like, not just like say like a short query, like here's like all this documentation, let's use all of that together. So yeah, I think it's interesting strategy wise, talking about that memory piece, and as far as like switching and the competition that it's creating.
Reminds me of I haven't tested this out, but I bet you could do it. There is like an export all your data from ChatGPT, and I'm sure there's something you could find that's an equivalent for Gemini.
Yeah.
I'd probably go with all the models have something like that. If you took that, you exported all of it, and then you went into the next model, I wonder how effective it would be. How well would it pick up where it left off? I mean, like, would it feel personalized? Would it feel really clunky? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely something to consider. And yeah, like you can do that for Claude too. You're like, let me export all my chats as like a gigantic long CSV file, like Excel file type, or like an XML file.
Going back to the very beginning.
Yeah, and put it into something else. Yeah, and so it's interesting, and I think it kind of brings the idea of this like, like that's you and your data, and if you take it to like a business context, you can think of like, this is like all of my business context, not just my queries. It could be like all of my emails, all of my SharePoint. Like, how is the model like more wholesomely like interacting with and being able to access that like just as a product?
And to be clear, it's not accessing all of your emails or SharePoint or anything. That's just an example
No.
of like the data
Yeah.
that you have. Yeah.
Yeah, the data about you, yeah, or your business that
Yeah.
exists. Yeah.
Which I think it's more important today to start understanding what those pools of data are that exist out there in your business, in for yourself personally too, that can really help an AI model be more tailored to you, or to just really do some of these different applications. I mean, uh, if you wanted to make a newsletter writing bot, right? It's very hard to make that without any prior newsletters that are in the style that you want. So you could actually, well, I mean, newsletter bot is not the best example because you still can make that pretty easily. but but if you had a bunch of newsletters that were in the style and the way that you want them to sound, that's going to help you make a better bot or make a better system that helps you write them. So that data becomes very useful. So I think tracking and figuring out what is the data that I have that is useful data that I could use for AI models is probably a good thing for any business to be doing at this point.
Yeah, I guess just continuing this sort of thinking here for a bit longer then. Yeah, 'cause I in my class just recently on Monday, there were 6 students that presented over 2 hours, and a few people came in to be a panel, which both of you guys have done. In fact, Alec, you were there. And after class, one of the panelists, Peter, he was using a new AI tool called TwinMind, and basically it recorded the entire 2 hours, and then from all that data, then it was able to summarize, each of the student presentations as well as panel comments and things like that. And so, not only did it provide good feedback for the students and everyone in the class there, but then also you just think about, again, all that information that you could use in other ways. And I think this just kind of goes to this trend or this direction we're moving in of trying to kind of capture more and more of our data that we hear and we see as we sort of go through our work days and even personal lives, I guess, as well. And obviously that raises a bunch of other questions and things like that we could talk about too. And in some ways kind of gets at some of the questions that, Alec, you forwarded to us from some of the people that have been watching what we've been discussing here and posed those questions for us, right? So we'll probably get into some of that, I think, in the next whatever year.
Yeah, and I think one thing to mention on that's really important is people think that you have to have like a meeting summarizer to get those recordings and get them into AI. But if you actually just have like a video recording or an audio recording, and you just send that to an AI model, your favorite one could be Gemini, ChatGPT, whatever, you can give them that recording and just say, hey, summarize this meeting, or hey, what was discussed here? And you can produce those same meeting summaries if you want to. But the important data piece that you have to have is some kind of recording of that audio or video or something like that. All right. So the next piece, oh no, I stopped sharing my screen. The next piece here is getting into Nano Banana, or actually first, where did I put it? Gemini in Chrome. Have you guys seen this little button? I don't know if you guys are using Google Chrome or not, but Gemini has now started having this little thing in Chrome that's like a little Gemini tab up in the corner. What's really neat about it is you can share your screen with Gemini. You can basically share the tab, and then it can tell you things about that tab that you're on. And you could speak to it or you could text to it. And so this is one of those things is as with Gemini 3, they also reveal all these other updates to their other tools. One of their other tools out there is Chrome. So this gives you a pretty powerful AI browser that you probably already have because a lot of people use Chrome for a lot of their work.
Yeah, and I thought one of the big significant things with the Gemini 3 release is Google saying that all the new default for Google search will be AI enabled. So we've seen that kind of sneaking into different browsers and different search engines, and now Google's like coming out and saying it like every single search is going to be AI powered. The old Google search that you grew up figuring out or learning how to do in your library class in elementary school like I did, it's gone. No more PageRank algorithm. It's all LLM now.
And I think one of the things to think about is what is the actual missing thing when you do search like that? And when you're doing that traditional search, you're typing in keywords and things like that to get those things to pop up. And once you do your first question, you actually don't have that ability to do a follow-up question, a follow-up search to narrow that down, or to get that natural language question out there. So that is why that AI search can be so helpful, is being able to do that second follow-up question for a query or for a prompt.
And I think so too, like just kind of thinking about the difference between like the original Google model really had to do with like matching keywords. Like, I'm searching for sleeping bags. If a website mentions sleeping bags, that's great. But it kind of like burst this whole industry of SEO or search engine optimization, where companies are trying to make sure that the words that are included on their website are going to get picked up by this algorithm. And so, as a consumer, like you still like you want like the most helpful result for you. But it's still being influenced by these SEO models in different companies, and maybe just like the way that someone like talks about something, maybe like the way that they phrase their sentences is different than the way you phrase it, and so for some reason that one might not come up, and maybe that would have been the most helpful one to you, but you don't know. So it's not like any of these models were perfect, but with AI and the way we think, or the way like AI models can take in all sorts of text and create context and similarity between words and phrases, usually helps kind of build like a bigger, kind of like almost like a wider net to get at what you're thinking of. Like, let's say maybe you've like never used a sleeping bag before, and you're like, I am looking to buy the thing that you, that's like the blanket that you use in your tent, but with AI, like, can use the context and like the way that those words and phrases interact in like a bigger way to be like, oh, they're probably talking about a sleeping bag. Let me help them find the sleeping bag.
Yeah, if you didn't hit the right keywords before, you'd just get missed. All right, Nano Banana or anything else on this one? Oh, you can also summon it by hitting like Control G too, and you can also type to it too. So you don't have to just speak to it, you can also type. But it's just more ways to get to the AI model faster. So it's one of those things is when your AI model is far away, when your tools are far away from you, you're probably not going to use them. But as they get closer to you, it's much easier to use them. All right, so another thing that's interesting is Nano Banana, which I love that we have stuck with the name Nano Banana. It's just like somehow people just love that name and they have been using it so much. So it's Nano Banana was the code name before, but it has become like the name that they used for the project, but it has become the loved name for Google's image model. And it's very good at photo editing and photo generation. So, and which also becomes very useful for any video stuff, because you might do an AI generated image and then another AI generated image, and then you might say, okay, get from this image to this image, and then you have video. That's one of the ways, one of the tactics for using AI video. But yeah, what have you guys found with Nano Banana? Have you done much with it? It's also way better at infographics, and we'll get into that in a second.
Yeah, I had kind of a funny story, I guess, using it. So last week I was on this Coin TV program called Tower Talk Live with Ali and Emma, and so I knew we were going to talk about the good and the bad of AI, and I kind of wanted to introduce the idea of sort of deep fakes and things like that. So what I did is I grabbed a photo of each of the two co-hosts off actually Coin's website, and then I asked Gemini to make a video of each of them. And so I think for Ali, I had her as Santa in the sleigh, flying through the sky saying, I'm bringing AI to all the good boys and girls. And then for Emma, I asked her to be a balloon floating in the Thanksgiving Macy's Day Parade kind of thing. And then the narrator says something like, and there's Emma, America's girl next door. Look at that smile, lighting up the crowd, or something like that. And anyway, going through that, when I first tried to do it just with their photos, I also was doing it on Sora as well to kind of do a comparison with the OpenAI model. And when I first tried it on their just on their photos, both said, hey, it looks like you're trying to violate our use policies. And so again, you're not able to take a photograph of a person and create them directly into an image. But all I had to do using Nano Banana was just to ask it to create a very realistic cartoon image of the photo, which it did. And then it had no problem actually making the videos, which were, I think, kind of funny. And and we kind of shared those on the program. Although Ali was really a little bit upset that I did that, even in a fun way. And of course, I was trying to make the point that this could be used in ways that people may not want it to be used in, and things like that. But it was kind of fun just to sort of play around and to see how kind of a relatively minor workaround kind of worked, and I was able to kind of get, because it was very clear who who they were. They were very realistic looking images. And of course, I'm sure there's going to be other AI sites, if they don't exist already, that maybe use some of this, especially if we see more open source models, to where they have less of those guardrails on what kind of videos you can or can't make. And obviously, this is a big thing. So anyway, that's sort of a fun bit of
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think that's a good point. And I think I've seen multiple, or an article and multiple people talk about the guardrails that Nano Banana does have, both in positive and negative ways. Like, if you ask Nano Banana to like make a picture of like a famous person or a public figure, it'll say like, no, I can't make, renditions of like famous people or public figures. And then this article was talking about like, okay, well, since that's what I wanted, I just went to ChatGPT to make it happen. But yeah, I've similar to kind of to like what you have run into, it seems like other people are too, and Google is really trying to, probably for their own PR and their public image, maybe more than like protecting consumers and other people's images, is really having it in a more like enclosed environment on what it can and can't do. But there are workarounds.
Well, I think that the point about guardrails being more lax, like when you're talking about Gemini and ChatGPT, those are like the biggest models out there that have some of the biggest guardrails. But at the same time, it's a blend of philosophy of kind of like what do they actually think? What do the people who are making and releasing these actually think? And what regulations are they concerned about? I mean, if you look at Grok, it's very open. It will do a lot of those requests that the other models will not. So, and then that just goes down the chain too. If you go down to other models that are lesser known or open source and don't have any of those guardrails built in. That being
How about you, Alec?
You can do a lot with these.
What have your uses been?
Oh yeah. Infographics, a whole lot of infographics. So in the Annovation community, we started doing this thing called the weekly workout. So that's where I challenge the business owners to make different, try out some type of AI tool that I think could be useful in their business. So in Notebook LM, which is a Google tool, they have introduced infographics. So whatever you have in your old notebooks, you can just click infographic, just like how you would click audio overview to get the podcast or something like that before. And these are really good. I mean, here is the one. So this is the last great train robbery of the West. And so I had a source in there that was just one source. And I clicked infographic and it made this timeline of it. And this looks like something that could be in a history book. I mean, this is just pretty remarkable from my perspective. I was blown away by this and actually this became a presentation slide for one of the people who I was coaching. Basically, he used this as the slide for his presentation on this topic. So, I mean, these tools can be really, really useful. And you look at the text here. If we did this last year, none of this text would be legible, or maybe like one word would be legible. But it definitely was not capable of doing this type of work. And so here's one from, I think this was, what was this? This was probably the Future of Jobs report that came out. So I took that PDF and then I had it make an infographic for the Future of Jobs report. Then I've got, this was a book. So I took a book and just put the PDF in there and it made this, summarizing a lot of the core concepts of the book. Then I had it make it into a whiteboard sketch. So you can also take these infographics, put them into Gemini, and use Nano Banana to edit them. And so I had it make it into a whiteboard sketch as if it was drawn on a whiteboard. I love the expo markers down here. It's looks very whiteboard-like. And then I had it do a chalkboard sketch as well. And I really like the chalkboard style. It just seems very, very nice. And so that's just in Gemini, just the simple prompt of, hey, take this image and make it in the style as if it was drawn with chalk on a chalkboard. And so you can do a lot with Nano Banana and kind of changing these images to better support any work that you're doing. I mean, um, this is just for these PDFs, but I mean, you think of any PDF that a business is sitting on, newsletters that they've written, things like that. Anything that's covering a bunch of concepts that might be very good to accompany with an infographic, you can generate an infographic now, and then use that to better illustrate concepts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can think of a lot of applications in sort of the, being here at the university, both in terms of teaching content and then for students to kind of organize their content too that they're trying to develop and for responding to assignments and other things they might be doing as well. So.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think the education applications are amazing. There's so many of them. Like, and textbooks too. There's a lot here. So, that anything on? Well, I guess one thing to mention before we wrap up Gemini is Google Anti-Gravity, because this is basically it's their editor, so their code editor, and it's pretty impressive. It's kind of like a Cursor competitor, and I think it's just worth noting because it is a pretty good alternative that Google came up with, and they released it. If you're not doing any code stuff though, this probably is not the product for you. But if you are one of those people who experiments with code, building apps and things like that, worth knowing about and worth maybe giving a shot.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys think? Have you checked it out at all?
I haven't yet, but I actually was thinking about trying it out today. I think I've said this on here, I'm big into Cursor, which I like. And Cursor is somewhat model agnostic. Like, you can tell it which model you want it to use, or you can let it decide for you. But I like that Cursor basically looks like VS Code, which is Microsoft's code editor. So, kind of mixing up all these products together. But yeah, I'm excited to try Anti-Gravity.
Yeah, I haven't used it either. I've heard about it and some good reviews and that sort of thing. And one other thing we haven't really talked too much about, but Anthropic also came out with Claude 4.5 recently. And I was meeting with someone who was just super over the moon about what he could do with Claude code that's based on the new 4.5. And he was talking a lot about one thing he likes it for is just, again, the memory that we were talking about. And he has all this data, and he was doing stuff with his kids that are in elementary school, and they were doing all this crazy, amazing stuff that he was showing me that they were able to do with Claude Code. So, that was pretty impressive too.
I think the other thing to mention too here is, like we were talking about in our chat on Monday, John, when you're working with a developer, this actually does open up a new path where you work with the developer and you actually, before you necessarily work with them and say, hey, we're going to build this thing, take 30 minutes or an hour and go into one of these tools, see what you can come up with. Maybe it's not anti-gravity, maybe it's something more along the lines of like what you can do in Google's AI Studio or stuff like that, or some of their other code building tools. But you can use these tools to build out the version 1 of what you would want to build, and then show that to the developer and say, hey, I'm trying to build something like this. This is the code I got started with. Can you check this code and build on it and build this into what I want? And you want someone who's experienced, who can give you the thumbs up, thumbs down on kind of what is being generated with this AI code, because you don't want to generate things that you don't know how they work, or at least publish them and have people publicly use them on things that you don't know how they work. But at the same time, it can get you a decent ways into actually generating a project and communicating what you want it to look like.
Yeah.
Addie, go ahead.
Definitely. Yeah, I've worked with clients before that develop like business specific apps for people. And most of the time, kind of the like sales leader will talk with the client, get the download of what they're wanting to do, and then go and make a POC using Cursor or Windsurf or something. Again, just using natural language prompts. It's not something that's like, going to stand up to hundreds of thousands of users and isn't tested for bugs and, hasn't been designed by a UI expert. But kind of, getting that POC and then sending that to the development team. It's like, definitely hearing that being done a lot in practice.
Yeah, the proof of concept stuff is just remarkable. And then one other piece. Oh, did it go blank? There it is. So we've got this interesting piece here, and it's not. Am I still sharing my screen? No, it stopped sharing my screen. I think we're hitting a bit of lag. Anyways, we'll do it without the article. But if you hear the term that ChatGPT declared, or OpenAI declared a code red, I want to explain what that means, because some people think that there's like, some type of, oh my God, the sky is falling, ChatGPT declared a code red. Code red means that they're pulling a lot of their attention from where they might have it elsewhere and pulling it back to their core product. And the reason why they do that is they say, oh, we want to make sure that our golden goose, our core product, is the best thing out there. And when Gemini came out, it like we've been talking about, it kind of took that mantle. It really had a leap up, and ChatGPT went into code red so that they can focus on their model. But that just means that they're spending more time figuring out how they can improve their model so that it is the best, and then coming back out from that probably with a 5.2 or whatever the next version is, that we can all check out and evaluate later. And that brings us to our last bit of news, which is the third anniversary of ChatGPT. So it launched November 30th of 2022. So we are now 3 years from that point, from the ChatGPT moment that woke up the whole world to AI. It was still around long before then, and it has been a thing for a while now. But that was really the moment that kind of got the world's attention onto AI and generative AI specifically. So before we move on to those listener questions, what are some of your guys' reflections, thoughts on kind of that third year anniversary as we go the third trip around the sun from the ChatGPT moment?
What do you think, Addie?
It's hard. I don't know. It's hard to believe that it's been 3 years. I think the first thing is how much improvement there's been in the models in the last 3 years, for sure. I think too, like bringing like the concept of AI out into the open. Like John, you and I have been like, working like in and around this sphere for a long time, and I always say like no one really understood what I did with my job before when I said I worked with machine learning models. And it was like, oh, okay, now like people have like a concept of what this is. Yeah, and so kind of moving past like really specialized use cases into more general like consumer use has changed so much. So I think about how kind of bad the first thing is like how bad it used to be like 3 years ago. How funny it was, like how many, you talk about like images and videos and how, it was always like, oh, I can definitely tell this is AI generated. This person has like 8 fingers on one hand, etc. But yeah, how much improvement we've made since then.
Yeah, how bad it is now looking back, but how amazing it was then, which obviously is what created all this incredible enthusiasm and excitement, and then also worries and concerns, because we just can see how amazing it is, and I think certainly us three and most people don't see it slowing down, because like we're saying, even if there are some slowdowns in some areas, there's going to be other developments and new use cases, and so it's going to be an exciting and uncertain and in some ways scary future because of all that uncertainty. So yeah, it really has been, and it's just kind of hard to imagine 3 years from now, let's say, you know, so 6 years from 2022, where will things be? And it's hard to imagine exactly where they're going to be, but it's not hard to imagine that they're going to be a lot more advanced from where they are today, based on what's going on, and yeah, and in so many different areas. And again, we could go into that in a lot of detail, but I know there's some questions too, Alec, and maybe you have a thought too, just before we move on to that about
Yeah, so I'll say something pretty quick, and then we'll hop over to the questions because we're running pretty close on time here. But yeah, I think it's just so fascinating to watch how the progress in 3 years, and to watch, for me, I look at the response of like how quickly did it take for people, the general public, to actually be talking about AI. So we had that ChatGPT moment, and then for a while it was a little quiet. I mean, there was some movement for that first year as people started moving on it and started to experiment with it. And then the volume just went up and up and up and up and up. And so it was really interesting to see a technology come out and then uh, get more talked about. And now I can talk about AI with my grandma, because like
Mhm.
everybody knows that AI exists at this point for the most part.
Mhm.
If this is the first time you're figuring out AI exists and someone sent you this, I'm sorry that you didn't know for the last 3 years. It'd be quite remarkable. I don't know what rock you're living under, but everybody knows that AI exists now. Um, so it's just pretty fascinating to see how it's gone from nobody knowing about it for the most part to everybody knowing about it in just 3 short years. And what I
Mhm.
hope we get in the next bit is everybody starting to use it and understand how they can apply it, because I feel like there's some people who are out there who don't know how to use it and actually apply this really useful tool. And I really worry about the imbalance of people using it and people not using it, because it's such an incredible tool and it's such a powerful tool that really we need more and more people using this incredible tool. All right. So, on to some listener questions. If I can share my screen, let's see. There we go. All right. So we have question number 1. AI agents are getting better at taking multi-step actions across tools like Zapier, N8N, and CRMs. What practical guardrails should business owners put in place so that these agents stay helpful instead of creating chaos?
That's a very important question.
Mhm.
I think starting with guardrails around data, what data comes from where, and who and where should it be able to go. I think before we even really start about taking multi-step actions, like making sure that we know all of this and have a plan for all of this. Like, okay, we have this data from our CRM, and this contains like PII, like customers, like names, addresses, phone numbers. Like, where is that data allowed to go and not go? Or now we have, maybe we're talking to some of our financial data, maybe that lives in spreadsheets, or maybe that lives in like QuickBooks or something. And so like, who gets to see the financial data? Where does that get to go? So like figuring out kind of the data governance rules first about um, how different data pieces are treated, and then from a high level, then kind of bringing in some of these like agents and multi-step guardrails, as well as like comparing your internal use policies with the data use policies of the like the agent tools like Zapier or N8N or Make or whichever one you're using.
So, Addie, from my take, I almost feel like it's still too early to be engaging multi-step agents in any kind of at all critical kind of operation within companies, and these we're getting quick advancements, and so that situation may change. So for my take, I'm sort of thinking maybe at this stage you play around with agents a little bit if you want to, but in sort of a sandbox kind of environment, and you wait until the tech gets a little bit more reliable. Do you think that's reasonable, or?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, yeah, like kind of the difference between like agents and like workflow automation. I'd say like AI is getting really good at like workflow automation, and like similar to like already having established all of your data governance rules, like having your established like workflows of like, we already know that this workflow happens. We already know that like info from this spreadsheet pairs with what we have in our QuickBooks and creates a report every month for us. It's like, we already know that that happens. We have it defined, like what, exactly, like we can like write it out in a sequence of steps. And so I think, yeah, starting in that realm, as well as like having a way of kind of like tiering the risk of kind of these different like workflows and actions. Like, okay, maybe like a workflow that's interacting with our financial data, maybe we're tiering that as like a high risk or medium risk, or like, but maybe something that's like marketing or like doing just some like market research for us, that's like a low risk. And so I think like being like, what are our ideas? How do we risk them, like risk from high risk, medium, low, and then kind of like inversing that with like the amount of experimentation, like innovation that you're interested in doing. Like, yeah, let's just like let a Zapier agent like go on this, maybe on this like external exploratory type thing where we're like, let's just see what other competition is out there for our business, and like let an agent like scrape the web for us. Like, we're not using any of our internal data. It's not like making any decisions that like affect people's day-to-day jobs or like the whatever we're doing as a business. So yeah, let's like experiment with that. But yeah, I think kind of that like inverse relationship of like risk tiering to innovative technology-ness. If that makes sense.
Does make sense, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I think if you're using Zapier, N8N, sort of these more workflow-like tools, and you're calling AI as a step in that, it's kind of what do you mean by agent? Because there's some versions where you are using an agent that's more like it's just a big old prompt and it's gonna do all the things in that prompt versus it's a step in a multi-step workflow. And the multi-step workflows pretty safe. Depends on what you're passing along and what steps you have in there. But those tools have been around for quite a while and are pretty effective and useful for really they're used in very large businesses as well as very small businesses. And so I think those tools are very effective. The other piece to keep in mind though is instead of creating chaos and keeping them helpful on that side of things, just make sure that you are testing them in the experimentation phase when they should be in that experimentation phase. So if you're familiar with the crawl, walk, run, don't try to run with a tool that you haven't really tested out in the crawl phase. So that experiment and scale up, I think, is also very important. And you don't always have to just because you can build an automation doesn't mean you should build an automation sometimes. So make sure it's something that's actually useful and actually going to help out in the workflow and not just create a lot more busy work. All right. Question 2. How can professionals use AI to actually improve the quality of their decisions instead of just speeding them up? What mental models or disciplines should we keep so that we do not outsource our judgment?
I have a good one for this, I think, at least a good suggestion that works for me, and that is to talk with your AI on your phone. So I have my OpenAI chat on my phone, and I can talk to chat about anything I'm thinking about and ask him because it's a male voice, even though I know it's not actually a him. But anyway, yeah, have those conversations and then sort of push back, and it's kind of fun too on certain things that maybe I'm not sure what to do about something, and so anyway, I found that really helpful. Not just asking for the answer to some problem, but just say, hey, this is something I'm thinking about. Here's kind of what I'm thinking. What are some things I might be missing? All that kind of stuff. And it's engaging. I find it engaging, and I find it really good and helpful too. So that's one idea.
Yeah, I think this is such an important question and kind of gets to this like critical thinking stage. And I think you can kind of like relate it back to all sorts of ways that we like used to find information, like talking about like a Google search. It's like, okay, you Google something, you find an answer. Like, are you just gonna like go with like the first top thing that shows up on the Google search? Yes and no. I feel like this is like, a skill that, hopefully still is kind of like taught in schools about like researching and finding things is like really vetting your sources. And so different models and different things like have different built-in kind of protocols when it comes to sharing sources. Products like Perplexity, which I really like to use, like cite a source for every single line of output that they do, which sometimes is like a lot. It's like, okay, this is like maybe too many sources. Like I was just hoping to reword the sentence in an email. But kind of getting to that like kind of critical thinking, I think also similar to what I was saying before, like what's the materiality of what you're going to be doing here and the decision you're going to be making. And then, just like you used to do with like a Google search or like even going to the library and finding books to write your research paper with, if any of y'all remember doing that, vetting those sources, figuring out who wrote them, when, why are those reliable sources that you can count on still. And specifically in like when you're working with generative AI things, it's really easy to say cite your sources or create like a citation list for me or create a reading list for me of things that I can go. And then you can, go to those links and see if those are good or not, or if it's just like some blog written by some dude. You're like, oh, maybe not this source,
Yeah.
I think that's a huge piece. It's just like when it's that same thing of back to you have access to Google, it doesn't mean everything on the internet is true. So, you need to make sure that you verify those pieces. And I like to think of it whenever I'm using AI, especially talking back and forth with it. And John, you were basically mentioning the same thing. It's like you're talking to a person and you kind of evaluate that same level of accuracy and truth. Like you don't, if I tell you something or if we're just having a conversation, right? Not I'm going to try to have everything true, but the thing is when you're talking to people, not everything that they say is true. It's just you have to evaluate and you have to verify these things yourself. It like any information you get, there should be a healthy level of skepticism and evaluation of, well, is that accurate information? And I think bringing it in as like you have 24/7 access to any peer in any subject matter with any subject matter expertise that you need. So that's kind of how I like to think of using AI is, oh, I need an expert on this type of topic. Okay, I'm going to talk to AI about that in that context, and I'm going to take every single thing that it says and with a healthy level of skepticism as if I'm talking to a person who knows a lot but still could be wrong.
Yeah, that's one reason I like to think of the AI, especially like the AI on my phone that I do talk to quite a lot, as an assistant as opposed to a tool, and we have talked about some other AI tools kind of thing that's fine, but a tool is something that maybe does just give you an answer or something, whereas an assistant is someone that you can have these kind of conversations that they can help kind of flesh out your thinking and figure out how AI can help you to be smarter in your decision making, that kind of thing.
But at the end of the day, it is your judgment. So continue to use your judgment. All right.
Yeah, still critical thinking.
Oh, yeah. I know we're getting close to time. Do you guys have time for about 5 more minutes questions? Maybe 5 to 10?
I think so.
All right. As AI systems become more personalized to individuals and businesses, what new privacy risks should small firms be thinking about now rather than later? This one's an interesting one.
Yeah. I mean, I think my top thing is similar. Almost kind of like a similar thought experiment to what you were saying, John. Is like thinking, or what we were just discussing. Like think about it like you're talking to a person. We know it's not a person, but like it's a human being. And it's kind of like this like big random conglomerate human being that has lots of internet or knowledge from the internet and other sources. And you're telling them about your business. Like, what would you be okay with, like, just telling a random person about you and your business? Like, how does that feel? Like, maybe you're like, here, this is what my business does. This is the name. This is where we're at. We can help you with this. But are you ready to like, tell them the secret sauce, your secret recipe of how you make your super special Krabby Patty or whatever? Is that what you would just tell like a random person off the street? Would you give them like the names and addresses of all of your customers? Probably not to both of those questions. So that was kind of my first thought there.
Well, what if you've gone into your settings and you can see the privacy setting there, and the standard default is, whatever you upload, you're going to help make the model better by using it for training. But you can click that off, and then basically you're getting the response that nothing you upload or any of the prompts or anything like that will be used in training. At that point, you could upload your customer data and your secret sauce, don't you think? Or would you still not feel comfortable doing that?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it depends. I think that's maybe similar to like turning off the basically data sharing is maybe similar to like talking to someone who's like signed your NDA or something.
Yeah.
Like, okay, now we've agreed that you're not going to share this out. Okay, now we can talk about this. So yeah, so kind of like level.
We lost you there for just a second, I think, but I think we got what you were saying. At least I lost you for a moment. I don't know if Alec did or not. But
I lost it for a second, but the fun thing about Riverside is in the recording we will still know what you said.
Oh, nice.
which is just so weird because we don't know what you said right now, but we will figure it out later. But moving on, my thoughts on this. So I think when you're looking at Coca-Cola or anyone who has like think of like the secret Coca-Cola recipe, right? There's no real reason they should be uploading that into AI. I just can't think of an AI application where you'd be like, oh, we have to submit our knowledge source of the secret formula to AI.
Maybe they want to make a new Coke.
Yeah, but in the instance that they did, right?
That didn't work so well for them last time. So anyway.
Yeah, you could do all kinds of things though. You could have a locally hosted model that is self-hosted and safe for you, or other different things like that. But I think when you get to the core of this question, when it becomes kind of like personalized to individuals and businesses, I think it's kind of more like that digital twin almost, because for the most part, from a privacy perspective, you're not really allowing people to publicly access that data, right? Your digital twin, John. If you guys haven't talked with AI John, you should. I'll put it in the description. Your digital twin, though, you have a knowledge source that you have given to that digital twin. I think it's really important that whatever people put in that knowledge source, realize that the digital twin can get that information out to the person who's prompting the model.
Yeah.
So be careful what you put. If you're going to put all this data into the knowledge source of a model, be careful who has access to that, so that they are not going to be able to prompt it out of it. But it depends on what you put into it and what you've given it. That's how I think of privacy with these models. All right.
And again, I want to note here, like, I think we just like started answering this question in view of like not open source, like cloud-based models like ChatGPT or OpenAI. There's always like options to have more privatized models that run on private infrastructure and can only see you and your data. So I think just want to like acknowledge like that's I think the lens that we all brought to answering this question.
Yeah, you have options. In other words, it's not there's a lot of different ways to engage with AI. All right, question number 4. Where do you think AI could meaningfully fail over the next 3 to 5 years, and what should small business owners be preparing for now so that they are not caught off guard? I can take this one first. Uh,
Go ahead.
any super small startups that, like, we've got a lot of startups out there. A lot of them will probably fail. And so, depending on the size of your tool that you're using, just know that some of them are going to go away. Um, does that mean that they're useless or you shouldn't be experimenting with them? No, I think you should experiment with a lot of these companies. Try to find what's useful. Some of them, the good ones, are going to stick around. Some of the other ones will fail. So it's a lot of those volatile, smaller startups. I do think some of them um, will go out of business. It's just what will happen at some point. So I think figuring out what tools you can rely on, and then having a plan if it does it, like, don't get too reliant on just one tool that is your entire business. Like, have backup plans if something fails.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's a good point, and that's actually something that I've experienced in a project that I was working on, where we were using a data annotation software, and the company dissolved while we were using the product, and so yeah, it was pretty, uh, you know, it's something depending on like what you're using. If you're like, yeah, I rely on this product by someone else, and what's like the business contingency plan around that. I think
Hmm.
it's a really good point. Yeah, I think when I think about like the meaningful failures and you start talking about like startups and small businesses, I'm thinking of lots of like vibe coded and AI generated coded softwares, where especially kind of in like the startup world, like there is absolutely so much that you can do these days without, having a full team of developers or even having developer experience yourself. But like relying on and like integrating AI created code into like production environments, I feel like I think there already are a few examples in the industry now, but other examples where code that wasn't, fully vetted or reviewed or, just relied on may contain errors or mistakes that could be pushed into future products. Both as like you maybe as a consumer using that product or, from the business side of you developing it too. So that's the first thing that comes to mind for me.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think you guys are both right there, of course, and sometimes some of these early stage ventures that have really good ideas might fail because the idea that they're trying to build gets subsumed or incorporated into one of the bigger models. And so, yeah, if you're not completely reliant on it, then you may be able to still have that capability just from a different provider. It might be maybe it is a bigger one or something along those lines. I think the other thing I would say about failure is I do expect there will be different kinds of AI failures, but a lot of them won't necessarily impact small businesses kind of thing, like as things get scaled up. And maybe some of this has to do with the robotic AI and things like that that's going to become more and more out in the real world, whether it's autonomous vehicles and other things, other humanoid robots and things like that. So there'll probably be some kind of interesting failures that might raise a lot of eyebrows and things like that, but may not really impact your small business in any way because AI itself is still going to be a big part. Yeah, so the fundamental AI is not going to get displaced or changed or too much or anything like that from those kind of things. But I think there'll probably be some just because as AI becomes more and more a part of everything that goes on in the world around us, kind of thing. So.
Mhm. I think there is one. So there, I think I like what you said about the robots, because that's gonna be there's gonna be so many failures in there. I mean, you just look at the clumsy robots that we have today. Think about those clumsy robots, but in a lot more real world applications. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's gonna be times when they lose signal or other certain things that happen, and it'll be interesting to watch that happen as we have a
Mm-hmm.
more uh, robotic society.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the other things that I do think this question might be getting at is like larger model failures. And I do want to put that concern to bed because I think there are some people who have talked about, oh, could OpenAI go bankrupt or something crazy
Oh.
like that.
Hmm.
And that is something that is way, way out there. And I think, especially when people talk about the AI bubble and they're like, oh, the AI bubble is going to pop. Well, if something like, let's just say that crazy thing happened of OpenAI going bankrupt happened, right? They have so many people who would want to acquire them and still have OpenAI running in some capacity that really it's probably not a realistic concern. Does it mean it couldn't happen? No, it could still happen. Something like that could happen. But that's like the worst case scenario in like 3 to 5 years that I could see. And I don't really think that that's at all likely. Anything else to add on to that? You guys think about?
I don't think so. That's a good observation there.
Because that's the other piece is the AI bubble talk that it's been around. I hear people chattering about it. I think it's worth mentioning. We'll do a longer thing on that at some point,
Yeah, that sounds good.
and we'll see how well that take ages. I don't know if it claps. If it's like something crazy happens in the next like you know month or two. He's like, wow, that was a bad take, but that's what we do. We explore the future of AI, and we'll be here trying to summarize the news and talk about it and discuss about it, all the crazy things that happen. All right. Anything before we? Anything before I play us out?
Well, the only thing I would say, as you were just saying that, Alec, I was thinking about the future topics maybe, and maybe we could do an episode where one of the focus has to do with what we think our sort of world and economy will look like in, let's just say, 5 years, something like that. That might be kind of interesting there's all kinds of different things that could factor into that for sure. And I think we'd probably all maybe have quite different views of that too, which would be interesting too.
Maybe even our January episode, we do
Mm.
for the new year, and we kind of
Mhm.
take a look at what that next year of AI might
Mhm.
look like.
Yeah.
All right. Well, before I wrap us up and play us out, I want to roll out the red carpet. What are you guys working on, and what are you excited for the next month?
Addie?
Yeah, can y'all hear me? It shows that it's
Mm-hmm. Uh, it's recording, so oh no.
We
Okay.
lost Addie, at least.
Well, we lost Addie. Anyways,
Yeah.
well, hopefully Addie comes back. We're falling
Mhm.
apart here at the end. John,
Yeah.
take it away, and then
Yeah,
I'll
so
go, and
I'm.
hopefully we get Addie back.
Yeah, we're doing a lot of interesting things with AI here at the University of Portland, and we're working on a professional development or professional education program in AI. And I also mentioned that I'm doing this AI class on Mondays at 4:10 to 5:05 on campus starting January 12th, I think, is our first class. And if you're interested in that, just let me know because it's great to have community folks in the class too, along with students. So we always have good discussions.
All right, and then I'll put a link in the description for that. Or John, you said just email them, or just have them email you.
Yeah.
Down at yep, down at up.edu, down at up.edu. So
Yep.
easy email to remember. And then I'll be doing AI Fridays every Friday at 9 a.m. except for the week of Christmas. So we take that one week off. So don't try to join us then because there won't be anything going on. But we will be back here doing the monthly AI update again in January. So look for that on the calendars and probably linked in the description as well. And we will see you all next time. I can hear the bell tower in the background. That's the UP bell tower. Rings every 15 minutes.
Yeah. Oh, you can hear that. Nice.
And Addie is back.
Yeah.
All right. Real quick, Addie, what are you working on, and how can people where can people find you?
Oh, yes. People can find me at my email, which is addie@cascadiasolutions.ai, or my website, cascadiasolutions.ai. Similar to what I was working on last month, finishing up some pretty cool client projects. Have done a lot of work recently around AI and sustainability, and also working on a course around using small models for agents.
Excellent. And send us your questions too, if you have questions that you want to get answered, or suggestions for future topics and things you want us to cover. Let us know, and we'll cover those. All right, now I'm gonna play us out for real. All right. I still can't get it to do those firework things that I did it. Oh, there we go. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, double thumbs up.
Nice.
All right. See y'all.
All right.